Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com.
Let's bring in Frank Bodani, York Daily Record. Frank, it was so wonderful to see you before the game on Saturday.
You as well, Steve. I think I vote always for night games every week. What do you think?
Well,
get to bed at 5 in the morning, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I got home at 1:30, something like that. And
excellent.
I was tired. Well, I only live 5 miles from the stadium, so that makes it a little easier. But
yeah,
I mean, that's the one thing. I believe the way I understand it, that at Beaver Stadium, that probably is the last night game for this season. Probably.
Oh, okay.
Because you can veto after 2. You can veto, and I just can't picture in November. Hey, let's go. It's November.
We'll see where they're at when it gets Michigan time, I guess, right?
Exactly. What was your evaluation watching this Saturday?
I think the defense is growing in ways I didn't exactly expect in a good way, and I think it's as much as what they're actually doing. It's the demeanor, the attitude, the way they're playing, more than it is any type of particular star power on that team. I really like the way they handle adversity. They almost just seem to embrace it. You can tell by the way they play near the goal line. And I think that means a lot, just little things, go back to when there's a Indiana runner trying to get extra yards and squirming away. Brisker just comes up and just levels him.
Right.
And it's just the way you go about it. I mean, it's a fair play. It's not a dirty play, but I like the attitude, and I think that could take them further defensively than people may think.
So they keep the ball almost for the most part in front of them, the down and distance part of it, and it seems like they've got a big time player at every level. Mustafa, Smith. Mm-hmm. Brisker. It seems like every level has that kind of player.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would harp on that. I think this could be their best secondary that they've had since they joined the Big Ten. And Penn State fans aren't used to. I mean, they're used to seeing kind of these shooting stars like the Midas and James Boyd, that kind of player, and
sure,
Marcus Allen. But to have a group of them. I mean, these are guys that are skilled in coverage, they're experienced, they got the attitude, they're deep. I think that's a huge difference from previous teams that will pay off. And then if these two young linebackers, you mentioned Brandon Smith and Curtis Jacobs, can kind of reach their potential a little quickly. I mean, they're close, I think, on a lot of times, but that could be a big thing in the second half of the year, too, I think.
So what did you think of the offense? They ran for over 200. It was done in a different way, but they ran for over 200. What did you think?
Well, you know what? They went out in the offseason and spent the money on the best guy they could get to run their offense. So I'm trusting Mike Yurcich, and I think the development of this offense, I mean, the good thing is I don't think they've reached anywhere near where they can go. Now, I don't know if they're going to get where some people might think, but Sean Clifford's got a lot of weapons that are just growing into their roles. I look at tight end. It just keeps popping up to me as they got 3 really good ones that are still finding their way, but could be big weapons, especially even coming up this weekend in Iowa. And the running game, I think it's a lot of little things. And but the one thing I think that is visible is Noah Cain does not look like Noah Cain at this point, and maybe sort of injury issues. So they're going to have to figure out how they proceed with the number one tailback spot in that rotation, I think, especially coming up this week. Big thing, especially because Kevon Lee, I think, has a lot of potential. But it was Cain that was 2 years ago out there that really won the game for him in the end with his rugged running. Do they have a guy that can do something like that similar right now? I don't know.
Right, and also the short yardage part people have brought up, and I can understand why they brought it up. I mean, because you want to be consistent, be able to pound one out when you need one.
But there's ways to work around it, and I think go back
I agree with
Mike Yurcich. There's ways to work around it, and I just feel like he's a guy that's going to have them prepared to work around it if they have to. With the short passing game.
That's a good point.
Getting the ball to the outside quick. Come back to those 3 tight ends that we mentioned. There's other ways than just giving the ball to the guy behind you and letting him go forward.
Right. No, exactly. It's a really good point. You took a long look, obviously, at Sean Clifford. We've now watched him into his 3rd year as a starter. What are you seeing in him right now, Frank?
Well, it's his most efficient self, and I just noticed his eyes being down the field all the time, a lot more. And it's really his experience and really just the way that he is handling his decision-making is just excellent, and it's a lot harder, I think, than people realize. But he's not making the mistakes, he's giving his guys a chance to make this work. If he has to throw the ball away, he does it. But keeping his eyes down the field. There's 2 touchdown plays were prime examples of that, where he looks like he's going to run. He just knows where the line is. He just looks confident. He looks in control, and it's going to be a lot on his shoulders. The fewest mistakes, I think, wins Saturday night in Iowa.
Yeah, no question. Iowa forces a lot of mistakes. We'll get to that in a second. Is there any other words you can come up with to describe Jahan Dotson to this point?
Wow. He's just an elastic guy that plays like 3-4 inches taller than he is. And, he's one of those guys that he doesn't impress you with his body, which I think is partly sometimes hard to wrap your head around, right? Like Jordan Norwood, Deion Butler, guys you look like you could push and you could knock them over pretty. Yeah. But, right. Man, he plays tough, and he goes up and gets the ball. I thought that first touchdown was 2 feet over his head. And he just goes up and makes it look easy. And, and how about this? The ability to take what defenses give him. He's not frustrated. He can't get deep all the time. He's great at that. But he's willing to work underneath and make the most of it. Him and Parker are both willing to do that. So they can pick, you have confidence that they can pick their way down the field with those guys as well, which is a big thing to have in your pocket.
Well, I watched Iowa play Maryland on Friday night, and then I rewatched the defensive tape this morning. I'll watch the offensive tape tomorrow. But I rewatched the defensive tape today, and it was pretty much what I thought it was. Because, I can get a view of the end zone, things like that. I felt like at the 7 turnovers, Iowa did an awesome job on 2 of them, the Belton interception and the fumble recovery on the kickoff return. The other ones, I felt like Tagovailoa was like, here, you take it. Frank, I'm watching the tape. I can't figure out on the other ones where he's throwing to.
Well, it might be a little like Penn State. With Michael Penix, it's not that he was getting sacked. A lot of times, I don't know if the rush was even right there, but it's almost like he was, there gets to be a little bit of an intimidation factor, and then sometimes you get in the head of a quarterback maybe, and he starts making plays he shouldn't. Without you even, Iowa's got a really good defense, and
no doubt.
It's almost that they got a young kid going in a place that he didn't want to go. So the point I guess I'm making is Sean is not, he has more experience, and you would hope for him and this team that going through what they did in 0-5 last year is going to help them in moments like this, because they've been through what Iowa has to give them. A team like that, they've been through the roughest points. They've been through the turnovers. They kind of know what that's about and what that's like. Kid like that in Maryland, not so much. So
right.
You hope Sean. You would think Sean and could handle maybe that a little bit better.
Because the first 26 plays that Iowa ran defensively, you know what all 26 had in common? They rushed 4 the entire time and not once blitzed.
Well, that's impressive, huh?
I mean, I sat there and went, okay. Yeah, I mean, every once in a while they bring somebody up and it looked like they were going to do something, dropped them off every single time. They went 4-7 the entire time. When you're plus 12 giveaway takeaway, which they are, and you have given up only 58 points, which is true, and you have 68 points off of turnovers, those are mind-boggling numbers through 5 games, Frank.
Well, it is. So if you're more careful with the football, and you have then, if you're Penn State, you have Jordan Stout as your punter, I think you can make Iowa's offense. You test them and you make them work for it, right? They haven't had to work for it as nearly as much.
That's a good point.
And I'm not sure that their offense, they don't have the overall weapons that Penn State does, and whether they're efficient or not. So if you have to make them work more for their yards down the field, that could be a huge benefit because they haven't not had to do that.
Because the average drive start on Friday night was their own 46. They started 6 drives in Maryland territory. Now, it's not as if they don't have the capability of going the length of the field. They do have 7 drives this year, 70 yards or better. But still, to your point, and that's a really good point, Frank, the offense has been given incredible short fields to work with because of their defense.
Well, and Penn State, I think, is better than most teams at that because, well, their defense is good, of course, but they also their punter's been excellent.
Yes.
I mean, there's not been many better than Jordan Stout, not just on distance, but really in a lot of ways as placement as well, and not giving guys a chance to return the ball and giving Penn State's defense a long field to work with. That could be huge in this game coming up, for sure.
No question. Frank, always a pleasure. It was great to see you on Saturday.
Yes, you as well, Steve. Thanks for having me on, too. Love to talk to you.
Same here, Frank. You're the best. Thank you.
All right.